You ever wake up and realize your entire life is about to turn upside down because of sledding? Yeah, sledding. That was me standing there in my kitchen in Colorado clutching a certified letter and thinking, you gotta be kidding me. It was the kind of morning where the coffee barely has a chance to kick in before your blood pressure spikes. The letter was from the Meadowbrook HOA, and I swear it could have been written in crayon for how seriously I took it at first. According to them, sledding was now forbidden on all community hillsides. Liability concerns, neighborhood aesthetics, blah, blah, blah. But here's the punchline: that glorious hill, the one that had been echoing with kids' laughter all winter. It wasn't theirs. It was mine. Name's Ryan Atwood. A few years back, I bought 15 acres just outside Boulder, one of those Colorado dreams, rolling hills, fresh air, nothing but stars and the occasional fox. And that hill, the one right behind my house, had turned into a sledding mecca every time the snow piled up. I never minded. Actually, it made me kind of happy watching families gather, kids screaming with joy, parents sipping thermoses at the bottom, waving like we're in a Christmas movie. Reminded me of being a kid back in Vermont, where winter meant freedom, not lawsuits. But apparently somewhere along the way, the HOA got it in their heads they could tell me what to do. Now, I'd done my homework when I bought the place. My lawyer Marcus, a guy so meticulous he probably alphabetizes his spice rack, made absolutely sure my land wasn't and never would be under Meadowbrook's thumb. Not one HOA rule applied, not even a little. But the neighborhood's access road, the only way in or out for 92 homes, cut right through my land. An old easement from the 60s, back when neighborly handshakes still meant something. And here I am rereading this letter signed by none other than Patricia Henderson, HOA president. Of course it was a Patricia. I'd met her once at a BBQ, 20 minutes of her kindly explaining fence etiquette. I'd explained politely even that she had no authority over my fence or anything else I owned. Clearly that detail slipped her mind. Now her letter says any owner allowing sledding will be fined $500 a pop. Cites some county ordinance that I'd bet my last bourbon doesn't apply to private property, especially not mine. I called Marcus. He picked up with a cheerful "How's mountain life?" I just laughed. Got an HOA problem. He knew I wasn't in the HOA. I read him the letter. The pause on the other end told me he was as shocked as I was. They can't do this, he said. This is at best harassment. That's what I thought too. But here's the thing. Remember, the easement. The right to use my road was conditional. It said so. In black and white, residents must maintain good faith relations with the property owner. Good faith, Marcus pointed out, is vague, but in this case it was a gift. Falsely claiming authority, threatening fines, misrepresenting laws sounds like a violation to me. So I asked, can I yank the easement? Marcus's pause was longer this time. You could. But Ryan, you'd be cutting off 92 homes. Big move. I mulled over, watching the hills sparkle under fresh snow. Kids were already sledding, parents at the bottom laughing. One of the dads, Tom accountant, big Broncos fan, waved. I waved back. This wasn't about kids sledding. It was about boundaries. If I let Patricia get away with this, next thing I know, she's telling me how to trim my grass or hell, what time to take out my trash. I told Marcus to draft the notice. A formal warning. The easement would be revoked in 30 days, unless the HOA made things right, apologize, retract the sledding ban as it pertained to my land, and promise to stop their nonsense. I mailed it certified to every homeowner. Might as well rip off the Band-Aid all at once, right? Didn't take long for things to get spicy. 2 days later, Patricia herself pulled up in a silver Mercedes, yoga pants, and indignation, marching up my drive like she owned the place. We need to talk about your absolutely ridiculous notice. I set down my wrench and smiled, all friendly-like. Did you get the letter? Of course. You're causing a panic, she snapped. Not as much as you caused by banning sledding on property you don't own, I said, keeping my voice calm. She went on about liability insurance, community aesthetic stuff that sounded real important if you squint hard enough. I nearly laughed when she said the hill affects the community because it's visible from their homes. You can see Pikes Peak too. Should we call up the Park Service and start giving them orders? I asked. She wasn't amused. She threatened, pleaded, accused. I just laid it out. You can fix this. Apologize. Admit you have no authority here. Retract your claims. She glared at me, jaw clenching like she was chewing nails. You're going to trap 92 families because of sledding, no Patricia. I'm standing up to you trying to control what isn't yours. Sledding is just the tip of the iceberg." She stormed off, gravel spraying behind her. The next week was wild. My phone blew up with calls, angry, panicked, supportive. Some people thanked me. Some accused me of being a villain. A few, like Tom, just wanted to talk it out. Most of us had no idea Patricia was pulling this, he confessed. "We'll apologize if that's what it takes." I told him, "It's not about me. The board needs to own this." He sighed. "Patricia's never going to apologize." I shrugged. "Then maybe you need a new board." Then came the twist. Out of nowhere, I got an anonymous email with a forwarded thread, Patricia plotting for over a year to absorb my land into the HOA, brainstorming ways to create fake nuisance violations, even fabricating complaints to force me into compliance. She was playing the long game and losing. Turns out the leak came from Tom's wife, Jennifer, who'd been left out of the loop and was fed up. Tom delivered the truth beers in hand, admitting Jennifer had risked a lot by sending those emails. The next HOA meeting, I wasn't invited officially, but Tom called from inside. "It's chaos in here. Patricia's getting roasted. Someone printed those emails and now the whole neighborhood knows." By the end, she was out. 51 votes to remove her. That should have been the end. But karma wasn't done. Patricia slapped me with a lawsuit accusing me of harassment, emotional distress, interference with her precious board seat. Marcus nearly choked laughing. She's grasping at straws. And while we were prepping a motion to dismiss, my mailbox got the Louisville Slugger treatment. Then a few nights later, my fence was tagged giant red letters, "Tyrant Bully." Not exactly Banksy level, but it made a statement. Sheriff Martinez, the local deputy, told me to install cameras. 2 days after I did, I caught Patricia on video sneaking up to my garage at 2 a.m. with a gas can. The light snapped on camera, caught her plate, and that was that. Cops picked her up at home. Attempted arson, vandalism, destruction of federal property, the works. At the trial, Patricia stood in front of the judge, smaller than ever, voice shaking as she apologized not just to me, but to her neighbors. The judge wasn't having it. "You abused your position. You endangered lives." Patricia got 2 years in county, 3 probation paid for every scratch and splinter she caused. Her lawsuit against me dropped. I didn't feel any sense of victory. It just felt sad. All this because someone couldn't admit they were wrong. Afterwards, things settled. The new HOA board brought in real managers, trimmed the rule book, started treating people like adults. Greg, the new president, even sent me a note thanking me. The hill stayed open. Kids sledded more than ever. Tom's girls, Madison and Sophie, drew me a crayon picture. "Thank you for sharing your hill." I told them, that's what hills are for. Not for HOA meetings. They laughed like only kids can. Looking back, it's wild how power warps people. Patricia wanted control so badly she lost herself and almost lost everything. I'd bought this land for peace and ended up in the middle of a suburban Cold War. But you know what? Drawing that line, refusing to back down, it meant something. Sometimes you've got to show people you can't just push your way into someone else's life because it's convenient. The aftermath had its own fallout. The HOA's insurance company tried to skip out on paying Patricia's legal bills, saying she'd acted way outside her duties. Me and Jennifer testified it was all her, not the board. The HOA avoided a huge payout but had to clean up its act. People were mad for a while but also relieved. Greg told me, "You've become a legend around here." I just laughed. I never wanted to be famous, just wanted my sledding hill. Life returned to normal. The hill bloomed with wildflowers come summer. The road stayed open. The only thing different was a little more respect, a little more neighborliness. And wouldn't you know, a couple years later, the HOA dissolved altogether. Voluntary association, just potlucks and block parties. Turns out people like being treated like grown-ups. Imagine that. Last winter, after all the dust had settled, I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the hill come alive with kids' laughter floating up through the snow. I thought about everything that happened, the lines drawn, the fights, the apologies, the lessons. I realize sometimes you don't get to choose your battles, but you sure as hell get to choose how you fight them. Boundaries matter. Agency matters. The right to say no is what lets you say yes to what matters most. Funny thing is, when you finally stand your ground, other people find the courage to do the same. My stubborn streak didn't just save my sledding hill, it gave a whole neighborhood room to breathe. So here's my question, what do you think? Was I right to stand firm even if it meant turning the neighborhood upside down for a while? Where's the line between defending your rights and being a jerk? Ever tangled with power-hungry folks who couldn't take no for an answer? Drop your story or your take in the comments. Maybe your worst HOA nightmare. Maybe that one time you finally said enough. Because at the end of the day, maybe the best way to build community is knowing when to say yes, when to say no, and when to let the kids just sled down the hill free as they're supposed to be.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.